Hello, everybody. I'm Vice Chair Maria Carrillo, and I'd like to call this Business and Economic Development Task Force meeting to order.
Do a roll call. Vice Chair Carrillo.
Here.
Board Member Fernandez.
Here.
Board Member Camachi.
Here.
Board Member Milo.
Here.
Board Member Perea.
Here.
Board Member Garcia.
Here.
Board Member Leonard is absent. Board Member Finney is absent. Board Member Folliard is absent. And Board Member Guerra is absent. He was on Zoom earlier, but I don't see him.
So we can go ahead and get started.
Yes.
The first thing that I would like to do is if anybody has a motion to, has everybody read the minutes from the last meeting from January 6th?
Yes. Yes.
Do we have a motion to pass?
Yes.
To approve?
Motion to have a second.
Okay.
He made the motion. Second. Second. First and a second. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion passes.
Are we gonna get an update from council and city leadership?
Yes, we have Mayor Mitchell. She's on the Zoom call. Mayor, if you can hear us, could you please if you are able to give us an update, or if you'd like to? This is if you can.
Hi, good evening. I'm sorry I'm not present tonight. I'm up here in Tallahassee for legislative sessions with some of our other council members and our city manager. But I don't have any updates for the task force right now. We're waiting to receive your formal recommendations. So thank you again for working toward this. I'm looking forward to hearing more about how we can attract new businesses, what types of businesses we should attract, and other ways, in addition to the parking, other ways that we need to ramp it up to support the existing businesses. So thank you again, all of you. Your time on the task force is greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman, do you have any?
I'll reserve my comments for the end of the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. There's no further comments.
And do we have anyone from the public that would like to share their comments with us? If you could state your name and if you're a resident.
It's George Santine, a resident of Sandy Springs, 1249 Heron. Wife owns a business at Sandy Springs, twice as sweet. I also have a business in Sandy Springs, York Street, real estate services. I'm going to first thank you guys for continuing to show effort and come to these meetings, because I think they're important. And believe it or not, I think what I heard through the grapevine was paper. Your voices are not completely going to deaf ears, because especially all your hard work, Mr. Milo, with the parking. It looks like the council wasn't able to get there, because I was trying to drill them about bringing up the question about the the gateway and the city planner and all the leeway that he has. But it looks like they might do a moratorium, trying to resolve some of the parking issues or stop the future projects that are around the corner. Cook Squares and contract show somewhere in Acre. We'll be hearing stuff, I'm sure, soon, so I'm glad. But just my usual plea, I know, like I said, sometimes seems like it goes in deaf ears, but small town, we have it. It's charming. And this charm part of it is that we are, a community, and that's part of the charm. But after that, one of the quintessential things for attractive small town is their shops, and they're unique, but they need to be attractive, and the aesthetics are super important. I think they've already mentioned on the council, I think Mayor Mitchell has mentioned about possibly getting some code involved to try to see if everybody could be more uniform. That's super important. I think that we have to put that pressure, because that's part of the attractiveness of a small town. And as long as we, continue with that in mind, I think we'll start bringing that other thing that attracts people to small towns. I think one of the ways that I think is possible is try to see how we can reach out to, I don't know, maybe some culinary schools. I think Johnson & Johnson's no longer here, but just to kind of show that, this is a small town where people that want to get started with really good talents. I see it all the time. One of my favorite shows is that dives and drive-ins, and even on your local diner, they serve some good food. So we need to get to that point of maybe attracting somebody who thinks that they can, start another business, and this is the place to do it. Obviously, back to the aesthetics. Where Siamo's store is at, and now Shishisaki's going. That's what we want to see. That corner, the awnings. I think we saw that across the board. We would change a lot. And the last thing before we just remind them about the parking around the circle. I'm also part of the chair of the Parks and Recs, and I just want to bring up an idea, see if your thoughts about it. If the parking is done around the circle, obviously we have a lot of issues with the counties that owns the road or makes the decisions on the road. But the park itself is the city of Miami Springs.
I'm not sure about the park.
The grassy area.
The inside, right? So I thought that one of the things you see in small towns is that it's kind of a destination place for people to go. Whether you see it with the children playground, small one, tables and stuff for people to sit down and have some coffee. Then you see statues of things that are historic in those small towns. Maybe Glenn Curtis deserves a statue somewhere in that middle circle, but something where people go. So the downtown people walk over there. And between the parking and people going there, we might force our county road people to make a decision of doing something to be more pedestrian friendly. Especially if there's a small child park there. If they see the movement there, people are just trying to get there. Right now we say it, but aside from the Christmas time, who's really trying to cross over and stay in the circle? Stay in the circle park. So that's an idea. If we could do something that can be more of a destination, that park that kind of puts ourselves into a central park idea and makes it more attractive. And then maybe it will resolve some of the parking issue, because if we do get the parking around there because of somewhere where people are going, then they're going to have no choice but to make it more pedestrian friendly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Santini.
Thank you.
So, let's see if there's anybody else. We don't have anybody else on Zoom. If anybody on Zoom would like to make any comments or speak or public comment, please raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Sorry, I just learned how you do a reaction on Zoom. Is my microphone working?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, I'm a millennial, and I think it's very important that I speak my mind. I'm not sure if many people in their 30s have joined one of these meetings, but this is a good opportunity. My first question I would like people to think about is, do they know anyone dying to open a business in Miami Springs? Because honestly, I think if you look at all the cities around us in Miami Springs, I mean, even if you go down to Homestead and Cutler Bay, there's so much going on down there, and they're attracting new talent, new businesses. And hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think, as he was saying before, I think his name was George, but I couldn't hear, the current facade of our central business district of Westwood Drive is pretty terrible. It's wanting to be a small town, but it's not. And to be a small town, you need to be a place to gather. You need somewhere for your community to get together. And to do that, it first starts with the look. Trust us, we know about look. Our store was not the look of a community store before, and we invested the money, and now at least we feel our community and our associates too are bringing a better small town feel to the area. And I wish we could see other local businesses and land building owners do the same thing. I would love to live in Miami Springs, but just the thought of not having much to do in the area is what has always deterred me. And I would love to see, in my opinion, some expanded sidewalks on Westward Drive to bring people there, let restaurants have more outside seating. I would attract maybe some local coffee shops, some artisan stores with products with more online sales, because in this day and age, a brick and mortar, even if they're a startup, they're not going to last unless they have a strong online presence, whether that's cake delivery, floral delivery. You can't attract a business to come if it's just going to be relying on people coming into Miami Springs, because they're not going to last. And our current businesses in Miami Springs on Westward Drive, I feel like have probably 5 years left on them. So now is the time to revamp Westward Drive, make it an appealing community place to gather where people maybe spend 4 hours walking up and down. Right now, it's a lot of medical centers, dentists. There's, I think, 10 hair salons within a mile radius. And they're not places you go into to spend time, to spend your money. It's somewhere where you make an appointment, you go and you leave. I would love, I obviously work in Miami Springs, but I spend a lot of time walking up and down Curtis Parkway with my dog, but I would love to spend time walking up and down Westward Drive and seeing our friends in the community spending their money locally. And I have faith that we can do it. That's all I have to say. And thank you guys for all that you're doing for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair of QC, I want to thank you for your presentation. And I've been saying this for 52 years. I'm 7 years old. I hope this time they'll listen, because I have a lot of information I just discovered 2 days ago that the city had proposals identical to what they proposed. And then the time comes and we did this. Madam Chair, I'd like to present all that information with evidence and factual data. This time I have the proof. Thank you.
Doesn't seem like there's anybody else on that's going to speak, so move forward with this.
Okay, let's talk about the old business. The first topic is the questions for the business survey. I think that the last time we were going to, all of us were going to be sending questions in, and then there's going to be at some point in time we have to look at the questions and say, okay, these are going to be the questions we're going to use on the survey, and how is this going to be disseminated?
Yeah, I saw that at the last meeting you guys voted to move forward with the survey idea. We did not, just so you guys are aware, in our office, Myra, who was the board secretary at your last meeting, she's no longer in the city. She took a position at the city of Sunny Isles. So I myself, I didn't get anything forwarded from her, or we didn't see anything from those emails. So we're still pending the questions. You guys can send them to city clerk at miamisprings-fl.gov. That email will send the emails out to everybody in our office, so we'll also be able to see it and have.
So if I can ask everyone, if everybody's in agreement, let's go ahead and do that. We submit the questions, so maybe we can at the next meeting have them choose which ones we're going to use and maybe move forward with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can.
Do we need a motion for this, or we're just discussing?
No, this is just more just a discussion item. There's no vote to be taken. You have already approved this idea.
Okay.
It's more just to figure out how to the action behind it. So when you guys send me or when you send us the questions, we'll be happy to send them out to everybody as well. That way, leading up to the next meeting, everybody will see all the questions that we have. so that at that meeting, you can narrow it down to your 8 or 10, I believe.
Would it be possible if can we set a date to send them to you by, so then maybe you could, before the next meeting, send it to us and we can
Yeah, absolutely.
think about which ones we'd like and make a decision a little bit more quickly in this meeting?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. So we have the meeting next month lands again on the 1st. If we have them by the Wednesday before, which is Wednesday the 23rd, that's typically when we have finalized agendas. We like to have everything done before then. So if the deadline by the 23rd of February, we can have those in. That way we can include them in the agenda to everybody so you guys can see it. We'll also post it on the physical agenda so that we have public comment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about recommendations on improving the city's code of benefits, the city's code to benefits local businesses? Is it something for discussion or
So I
did we
believe,
have a vote on this previously?
no, there was no vote that's been taken on this one. I believe at the last meeting, from reading the minutes, it was just discussed some ideas that could help improve the code. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Captain Nihal had agreed to come up with some topics. I don't know if you want to speak on this item at the moment.
It's up to you, Madam Chair. You want me to make any presentation to finish that?
I think if we're already talking about it, this would
Okay.
be a good time. Please, Catherine.
Then I spoke to a few business owners. And again, I bring this up. It's come up many, many times. It's parking. There's a huge problem in this city about parking. And without going into a long presentation on this presently, I would like to mention, without mentioning the business's names, that they're having issues at certain times of the day, Madam Chair. And this has not only been discussed recently, as Mr. Marlon exposed, but this happened 10 years ago at a different situation. Under Chairman Mark Trowbridge, which I discovered just by accident because my diagonally across next door neighbor invited me to come to see him. He's an architect, commercial architect, now retired. And his comments were, I spent 2 years together with a lot of architects and construction experts on a board similar to what you are on. The chairman at the time was Mr. Mark Trowbridge. I did not have any idea. He told me. And the reason this came up is because we were talking about the late great councilwoman Jennifer Gator that everybody likes, regardless of what society they belong to. And when the discussion came up, and I told him to come to the meeting, he said he was involved very, very much so. And he told me I could get information about what this was. I was a little late today because I was running around trying to get all this information disseminated. It absolutely flabbergasted and shocked me. Because the city of Miami Springs was presented with, this is not the first time, Madam Chair. This is the third time that I know that the city has been presented with all kinds of task force recommendations. And he told me, I hope you're not wasting your time on all 11 of them. Because this is what they did. They took the report, they threw it away, and they didn't pay any attention. I started reading it. I didn't have enough time because I got free about late this afternoon. And I had a lot of things going on. I tried to read through all of it, so I admit I didn't read it. But I printed some of them because I thought Chairman Mark Trowbridge would be here. Because I didn't want to put him on the spot, but his name is all over this. And he has been discussing this with his task force in 2009, 2010. Because he wasn't available at the final presentation, and they nominated a new chair, Mr. Roger Crescencio, who happens to be the brother-in-law of my next door neighbor, who I mentioned his name. His name is on the report. He's Juan Calvo. He and his brother-in-law and sisters-in-law, they have a huge architectural firm. And guess who else was involved in it? The great gentleman who volunteers so much of his time, architect Mary Bishop. His name is all over this stuff. So what I'm trying to, I wish Mark was here because I want to know what the city has done for 37 years. I have documented evidence and factual data that our taxpayer money was expended by city council and the financial department committees and city managers to conduct all these studies, study after study, and now we have been told, I have been told, oh, don't look at that old data because it's outdated. Nothing is outdated. We didn't do anything with it. According to Mr. William Alonso, I asked him to put it back in writing. I believe the number was $254,000 on the last study. Now the task force, the architectural task force, volunteers like us, they were busy businessmen. But just like all of us want to big care about this city, and what's really frustrating, and I talked to some councilmen on the committee right now, who are also frustrated because they're making suggestions and they're being shut down. There's political stuff going on. So I am at a point where I just don't understand what is going on with this great city, like Chris just mentioned, and other cities in Santini. We can do a lot, but every time it comes to something we can't do it. All these core things that these people are talking about were discussed 9, 10, 11 years ago by the architectural board. Suggestions are change the pay tariff, which is ludicrous and ridiculous. Why are we not following, looking at other cities? I commend the commission and the city council of Hialeah. Never have thought I would say this again. I can't believe the expansion in Hialeah. Who would have thought that they are far beyond where we are? We have more passionate people, in my humble opinion, in this city who care. People who have time, busy businessmen like Mr. Santini, Jeff Poporino, Mr. Siamo, Mr. Garcia from Siamo. And there are many other businessmen I talked to, very busy. So Rishi, in the middle of the pandemic, he opened Taco by Divino. Why did he do that? Because he's a visionary. Madam Chair, we have a problem in the city that people don't visualize. Code, all those things, all that. I'm going to refer to this. Do what the panel recommended. Unfortunately, the city has time limit on that presentation that was created, but there's documented evidence of the proof of what they came up with. Just implement those codes, the signage, the codes, the colors. I can give you the dates, it's 2009, 2010, 2011. If the city adopts everything, the architectural board, and I didn't even get a chance to read every single document, there are pages and pages of it. So if you would please make a note of that, for this committee to adopt those policies, and please don't allow anybody in the city council to say, don't use the report. And talking about code, I discovered something about 45 minutes ago, which is why I got there. What I discovered, the same people that proposed to us 25 years ago are working in West Palm Beach. Guess what, who they are? Look at the sidewalks. I don't want to talk about my past life, but as an airline pilot, I flew all over this planet, including great country, the United States of America. I saw small old towns like this doing these things, expanding the sidewalks, on walkways, and I call walkways. I have the plans that Manny again, so many times Manny Perez has devoted his time and love and dedication free of charge to this city and the different councils. I talked to past Mayor Jack Hubert. I talked to Mayor Hubert. All of them say there's a problem here. Chrissy is right. Nobody wants to think out of the box. If I'm 17, I can think out of the box, and I have young children, I have grandchildren, and I flew the planet, and I say, we cannot be stuck in the past. We gotta do something. Nothing is getting done, Madam Chair, and we need to do something. So as far as the board, I answered that question. I brought up this because it is global call and office. What does this tell you? We paid all this money to these people, and not one iota of advice is taken. What kind of autonomy? You're wasting your time. I'm being absolutely honest. He says, don't waste your time. That city could tell us about anything we suggest.
So are you suggesting that the recommendations to
Yes.
improve the city's code are in these last?
Exactly. The two main things I heard was the code needs to be adjusted uniformly for all businesses to attract businesses. Like Chrissy said, she hit the nail on the head. You're not going to get people to come in because you say marketing is a great nice city. No, they're not coming. You have to take examples of the previous reports, change the color palette, that's number one. Number two is to address the signage. Every sign in the city is ludicrous. You look at the signs, I just walked today, I live on Duval to UPS. And then we talk about the circle. Mr. Santini is 100% right. Guess who has brought this issue up? Mr. Jean Martrolia mentioned about 3 meetings ago. We need to look at that opportunity. He's 100% right. I've seen it in other cities. They call it the roundabout, which is a British term, but it's a circle in the United States. They utilize that space to park cars there. So now you have traffic calming because of it. You make it, it's going to be difficult for some people who are using it as a thoroughfare between Okeechobee and 36th Street. But that's something we have to address with city planning and building and zoning. But in the meantime, these things should be looked at and adopted and not say it's old fashioned, we don't want to do anything. So again, the code is that. This is something is another thing. Adjust the code. And like I said, we were walking today. Now, thankfully, we got the code changed, and there is a pedestrian crossing off of Curtis, and you be careful that there is a crossing there to get to the circle. Problem is, once you leave the circle, there is no way to get out. So we go close to Burrito-ville, there's like a pathway where the trucks coming for these festivals. So we have to be very careful to make sure nobody's going to kill us and be crossed over. So that would be an ideal place to put another cross. Get out of the circle, because to get over to Starbucks and Subway shape, there is a sign, pedestrian crossing is a sign. So these adjustments have to be made now. That's not code that pertains to the county, that has to be addressed by the city. And I know this issue is a huge problem with money to adjust anything. I believe Mr. Garcia is supposed to speak under the recommend new business for the coin thing.
The funding project.
Right, to fund it. And I may be going a little bit ahead of myself, but I just discovered yesterday, I'm finding things out in the last 48 hours, that Mayor's Wall is something I know that he had mentioned last time. Raised $5.2 million. The city of Miami is younger. I'm not saying for people older. I'm older than Bob, so I'm not any, no offense to you, sir. 1 year, so I'm older. So I'm no offense to elderly folks on our council. But if the elderly folks like we cannot think out of the box, we are not going to do anything. What did Mayor Torres do? He adopted this great gentleman here who proposed this. It's a little complicated, but not difficult to understand. He's going to make the presentation. I'm sure he said he's going to do it last month. We need to listen to this stuff. I personally am willing to put my personal money. I'm so convinced that many prayers that I have right now, I am willing to start the contribution with my own personal funds. I'm not a very wealthy man, but I believe in this city. I believe in this project, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. I have offered to the city to come and work with the new lady in charge of that to help. But I stopped here because I'm going way off the subject. But I wanted to bring these points forward, Madam Chair, because these are important facts for the code changes, because everything comes down to expensive. Some people keep insisting there's no parking problem, but there is a problem. Because that's what I'm hearing.
So,
Follow what the class architectural task force recommended in the years of 2009, 2010, 2011. There's a lot more detail in the rest. Second is change color palette. Has to be more acceptable. And third is to look at the signage again in that report. And I have another great suggestion, and I think this is for everyone to see, so I pass it along. It came from a forward-thinking business person in the city who has a business here. And with your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to pass it around. As we want to not clear, so I don't, so I have my yeah, there should be enough, there might be a 30%. It's a great suggestion to buy a person pertaining to the painting and the scheme. And it was a businessman here in Line Street, who by the way paid something like $3.2 million cash for the building. So these are things we need to really look at, honestly. That's always. Well, continue on. Thank you, Sandra, very much.
so as part of these recommendations, do we write them down?
So, you can just, so to make a recommendation, you would make it in a motion,
Okay.
right? You move to recommend the points that you just made,
Right.
right? Somebody would need to second the motion, and you would then vote on that motion to move forward with that
With
recommendation.
these recommendations.
Yeah, then I make the motion to move forward on code changes on the following. Please consider changing the color palette to more suitable colors that other cities of Miami have. 2, to consider look at all the proposals made for signage by the architectural and architectural task force in 2009, 2010, 2011. And third, to revisit the parking issue which pertains to code, because we have to address that. Because code has to come into allowing that.
Okay, so can you clarify that portion of your motion? So I have, number one is code changes to the color palette.
Correct.
Consideration, the second is consideration on the signage recommendation from the Architectural Review Board from 2009, 2011.
And then the third one was this presentation by a business person to consider, and it would be displaying public art in certain areas and buildings that would be beneficial to the city. How you word it?
I'm not sure. That's your motion.
Okay. Any suggestions, folks? It's pathetic, isn't it?
Well, Captain, give you a break for a second, you're doing well. No, I think maybe just say, as part of your motion, consider, the recommendations here as a basis.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Thank you, man.
Okay. So recommendations from the handout that you just presented.
Yes.
Regarding public arts,
Correct.
maybe a public arts district or adopted law, the handout presented. I think
And that's similar to many cities, and there are, I'm not, if you want to include that, include other cities,
It wouldn't, it's gonna come out of the minutes in the record. So we have a motion, we would need a second
Okay.
in order to vote.
I have a question. Who is Jeffrey Garcia?
He works with Carla Hernandez Match, and she's the United Teachers Association chairman. That I think they have 80,000 teacher membership. If I'm not mistaken.
My only, I guess, reservation with this is I don't know what the city is. Isn't the city involved with some type of litigation with
Before we get to that, I'm sorry, just for procedural purposes, you're gonna pick that up in a second. We have a motion, we would need a second to continue,
Is there further discussion on this motion?
not until somebody seconds.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second, so, I'm sorry, continue your discussion.
No, my question is that if this is, I don't know that we wanna be supporting something right now that maybe, again, I don't know if the city is in some type of litigation or legal situation with the mural that United Teachers put up in that building. I mean, I don't know what the status is. I know that there was an issue.
There's,
So I don't know if this would affect that.
they're in the process of obtaining a variance or in the process of seeking a variance. They're going to be heard on the March 7th, Board of Adjustment meeting, I believe. I would have to double check that, but it doesn't prevent you from making a recommendation. It could definitely be something you consider, but preventing you from moving forward with that.
Yeah, I personally feel, and I see your point, but I don't think, the rules are the rules. I mean, we're suggesting, hey, this is something to look at moving forward. Sure. And I think it's all very well and great what you've done so far. And I'm just a big proponent. We just got to get out of this box and start doing something. And so, I'm not saying I'm necessarily a huge proponent for all this, but we got to start doing something. I don't have to agree with that. That's okay, but we have to start doing something.
So we had a motion, we had a second. Is there further discussion?
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote for this presentation. Board member Milo,
Yes.
board member Perea,
Yes.
board member Garcia,
Yes.
board member Leonard,
Yes.
board member Fernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Perea.
Yes.
So that recommendation gets approved. It'll be. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Board member,
But it's yes.
thank you. I apologize.
No worries, no worries.
When did you walk in?
So the way that it'll work, so just so you guys understand, that will be along with the minutes, it'll be put into a memo that both of those will go to the city council for them to review. At their meeting. To show that at this meeting, you guys make this recommendation for this particular item.
Thank you.
Could you please, when you have a chance, send me that backup information, this as well in an email? That way I can include it all together with that.
I'll do that.
And then ultimately the way, just reading from the way the resolution of this board that created this board reads, you want to go with, at the end of this, provide a report. What I can do is once we get to that stage, or we can provide you with all the recommendations that you made, so you can include that as well. I also noticed, I'll get to that when we get to the item 5E. You can go ahead. We're moving over to 5C.
Small business incentive programs. Do you have any suggestions for this? Do you want to tackle this time?
I wanted to make a comment following the captain's presentation. And also something that Mr. Milo had mentioned. It was one of the first meetings. And I happened to receive a call this week from someone that was involved in one of these other similar boards. And he was telling me, Charlie, don't waste your time. I spent 2 years doing this and that, and we come up with all these recommendations, and then at the end of the day, there's no money. The city never has the money to implement anything. So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So what is it that we're doing here? When we have all these reports, and I've had the chance to review some of them, there are a lot of good recommendations already in those reports. Why don't we start to go back and save the city money and start to look at those and come up with recommendations from some of those previous studies, and then tell the city, find the money. If you're serious about doing this, let's do it. But why spend another, year in this format? Then whatever that recommendation, whatever hearings the city has, next thing you know, the clock keeps ticking, it'll be another 2 years, and where are we?
So I think this is the way that I look at it. I'm volunteering for this, hoping for a result. They've asked us for recommendations, we're gonna give them. I don't personally, I don't expect for all of our recommendations to be approved, but I would like to see that several of them, like I would like to see something, but I think that we're jumping the gun here because we have to give this mayor and city council an opportunity to see if they're gonna repeat what has happened in the past. I don't believe that, otherwise I would not be here. But I could be wrong,
There are a lot of good recommendations in a lot of these previous reports
and I think that's
that,
why,
that we're probably gonna end up coming up with
let's do it again.
similar recommendations.
It's a different council, a different mayor, a different time, maybe we can get things done now. If we're not, then I can be doing a lot of other things
I
during
mean,
this time.
the captain in Manny brought up a couple of meetings ago that the parking on Westwood Drive. There's been similar proposals from previous studies, and nothing was ever done. So here we are, and I guess that would be a recommendation to do something on Westwood Drive, similar in concept what the captain brought up with Manny.
Thank you.
I would put that as a recommendation. Now,
I think that parking is coming up, but I
It
think what we did was at the last meeting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the last meeting, we said because there was gonna be a discussion, 2 weeks ago, was it?
The last meeting,
yeah.
through the chair,
Then at our last meeting, we said, let's wait to see what happens there because they're gonna be addressing parking. Right, so,
Madam Chairwoman, I would like to echo what Charlie said. I came into this, again, as I said in the first meeting, I was very hesitant. I'm gonna say I had hope, but I'm hesitant. I did not want to serve in this task force. And I say that from what I experienced time and time again. Nothing ever happened. And I listen to some of these council meetings, I watch the YouTube tapes, and I see there is a lot of money spent. I see a lot of resolutions spending a lot of money on sidewalks, you name it. You have to be willing. You have to be willing to adapt, and you have to be willing to change, and you have to be willing with the fortitude to do something, to be someone that's gonna make a difference. And just sometimes I just don't have all that faith, because even as we've been on this task force, I've seen and heard things that kind of come out that just concern me. Boy, it's the same old thing. So I get a little discouraged. And we talked about a report. I even asked myself, who's gonna write this report? We meet for an hour and a half a month. And we have a report due in September. Who's gonna write this report? So I kind of firmly believe as we go along and good ideas come up, let's get them to the council. That's our report as we go. You have some smart people here. Listen to them. And I hope, again, something will happen.
But in terms of small business initiatives, which is the topic, is there any discussion that you would like to take?
Madam Chair, I just would like to mention, we have small business initiative program. This is 100% right. Who is gonna come here if we do not do the basic things that have been recommended, not just by us, but 1970 years ago and 35 and 30 years ago. So that I would say for that, the answer is exactly what Mr. Leonard said. Don't tell us don't use these plans reports because they are old. Yes, they are old, but it costs taxpayer money to do it. But they're all good. I read them. I'm the only one I think that's required. I have a lot of time. I read these reports, not intensively, but I read them quite well. Those reports are absolutely amazing. The Kurdish Parkway Party, the Goal report on the Central Business Street, everything comes back to Westward Bank. The number one thing, and the visionary Captain Glenn Curtis didn't care about what it cost because he had the money. He just did it. And talking about visionary makes me going on the subject. More business incentive programs. I just found out again yesterday that there's a very wealthy person who has purchased the building that Burrito owns and the gym over there. And he has the same vision that Captain Glenn Curtis said, all of us here have, and I have. My second dream is not to be a pilot, I already did that. So I have a dream. My dream and vision is to follow in the aviator's footsteps. Nowhere near his comparison, of course. Glenn Curtis said, put a little bit of my money where my mouth is and want to see this come to fruition. I have proceeded to talk to the University of Miami and the Miami-Dade College, and my wife is the one who suggested it. I have to give a credit to come up with three-dimensional presentation. I need to pay all these agencies and TV to put it on TV, to show the city of Miami what Westwood Drive will look like. My own money, I don't want any money from anybody. Why? Because I'm convinced that the people see that. They see this, what other cities have done and what they are capable of. That's where the small business incentives will come.
So we need to table this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, please. That's what should be item C.
Okay, but this should be tabled.
Correct.
Okay, but yeah, that's because this is the third time that that item is tabled. There's a couple of things that keep getting moved down. I'm just trying to say, I know you guys are working on a deadline and a report has to be due at a certain time. If you guys want to remove that, that's totally fine. If you want to table it, that's totally fine. I think maybe there should be some action plan to when you go to talk about it next week. Maybe is somebody who wants to take up some suggestions for that, or you can come with consensus, just remove.
So, go ahead.
I was gonna make a comment. When I read business incentive programs, the world that I came from many years ago was from the Beacon Council. And we would negotiate economic incentives to help companies expand, to help companies relocate from other areas to Miami-Dade County. Michael Finney is the president of the Beacon Council now. That's his world. Business incentives to me means expedite permits for businesses, tax relief of some kind, whether it's for furniture, fixtures, equipment, improvements like Milam's is doing to their place. They get a rebate or they get a certain tax abatement, tax relief on their property taxes. To me, that's what business incentives mean.
That's what it means to me.
Grants to help owners fix a facade, you know what I mean? But I don't know if the city, even if they wanted to, can offer that to businesses here. Well, I don't know that the city has the authority to abate their taxes to business owners that and I don't need to use your example, but you're the perfect example. You invested millions and millions and millions of dollars on the store. You know, an incentive to me would be, listen, because you made that investment, we're gonna reduce your property taxes by X amount for the next 10 years. That's an incentive for a property owner to come in, you know what? I wanna go ahead and fix my building now because I'm gonna be able to get a certain amount of tax relief so I can invest that money. But I don't know that the city can do that, or the city has the capability of doing that. Now, the county might be able to pitch in I don't know if this new Build Better America Infrastructure Fund that the feds approved, I don't know if some of that money will trickle down and maybe the city can earmark some of that for what we want.
I mean, I
Whether
can
it's the
definitely look
parking
into.
on Westwood Drive, helping the property owners fix their buildings. I don't know. But that's what business incentive means to me.
Those are great points, and I can look into the sort of some of the concerns you have, and see what the city can do in that sense. And I think all those are great ideas. Is that something that you want to bring back? Like, is this something?
Yeah, I mean, if
We wanna
that's
keep
something that
discussing.
the city could do
What's
to come
legally
up,
can be done.
yes. I would
Legally can be
I would
done.
put that as a recommendation,
Yeah,
Because if
well,
we can't,
because otherwise, why have that business incentive there? Because,
I mean, the board chose to be.
no,
That's
no,
why
I
it's,
understand,
that's why
but
it's
if
like,
there's really nothing that the city can offer, I mean, maybe they can do permit expedite. So
Yeah.
business can get their permits quickly, that's something, instead of waiting months and months, whatever, you know, I mean, I don't know.
Madam Chair, I have a suggestion, it's like, I made that motion. Starting is a tremendous idea, the incentive, when he talked about makes a lot of sense, other cities are doing it. Is there a possibility to make that into a motion format?
if he chooses to, he can, but I also, it sounds to me like there's still questions that you have. There's still, you
No,
still
I
have
don't
to
have a
find.
question. It's like, the only question I have is, okay, let's say, I guess we all agree that those could be business incentives that make sense.
And I'm just thinking back in history, and Councilmember Best, you might help out, this may take the attorney, but it seems like 20 years ago or 18 years ago that the city of Mighty Springs did have something, whether it was doing things to the exterior of the building that did provide some relief, you know, whether it was painting or awnings. I could be wrong, I'm just not sure, but I'm not sure it really ever went anywhere.
Sorry, remember, I'm just making sure your mic is on so that you're able to be heard on. I heard you guys.
so
I
Johnny,
mean,
do
I
you
would-
want to make it into?
I would make it as a motion for the city administration or whatever to come back to us to see what, in the form of incentives that they can do. Whether it requires a layer of approval from the county in order for the city to waive or reduce or abate the city portion, or maybe not just the city portion of their taxes, but also part of the county. I don't know.
Charlie, following up on that, I think there may be restrictions on using public money for private improvements, so it might be something the county can, provide some leeway, or even our council. But that's a situation like if they're paving a road, for them to pave your driveway, they can't use public,
No, what
and
I'm
it's
talking
something
about-
like that, if you do like solar heating or something, the government can go ahead and help use it because it's gonna be green. Same thing with improvement to the community. What can the county and the city actually provide to those businesses as a business development?
Well, I disagree because I'll give an example, the enterprise zone program provides for, and
If you're
again,
creating jobs, which is gonna help the
for creating
community.
jobs and investment, it provides for 50% tax abatement for that property owner's property. For him believing in investing in the area, investing in it, in the big picture effort to revitalize an area. And that's what we're trying to do, we want to revitalize.
Is that a city,
It was
county,
it was
or-
a state program that the
State.
county adopted, and I know the city of Hialeah had it as well. That program has since sunset, I
We
believe.
also had a community development district.
Right,
Which
so I
was the
mean,
same
there,
thing.
I mean, there is ways of doing it that will help the private sector, the private property, but
They need to
I
tell
don't
us
know if
what they
that's out
are.
there now, but somebody needs to, if it's out there and it's, then we should try to explore and see if we can utilize it.
so the motion would be to try to.
So the
to
motion
find
would be
out-
for the city to investigate what kind of incentives are out there, whether state, county, the city themselves, to help businesses. Whether it's expedite the permit process, whether it's, some type of tax abatement,
Subsidies.
Okay, so for everything you said, just concisely put it into one motion. I move to recommend.
I thought I just did.
I know, I'm sorry.
I moved
thought
to in
just
the
went
front of
like
it.
that.
Listen, my steel trap is not what it was.
No, I know. I just want to clarify so I get it correct when I write the motion.
I think what Charlie's trying to say is to understand and explain exactly what that means, small business incentive program. To a point where it has to be, what we were saying earlier about giving tax credit or support as far as the city doing the parking, which is their part, it's the city. And at the end of the day, honestly, I believe, no, it starts with the business owner. It really does. I mean, if you don't, as a business owner, make the effort to take care of your business, and 90% of the time, when I run the country club there, I do improvements and I pay for them, but they're very much willing to support me. And I appreciate that. I think the city, by itself, if they see, and you see the improvement you made in your place, or your facade, your house, your garden, I assure you that most likely they'll help you. That's how I look at it. That's my opinion. I lived it for the last 2.5 years, and I've done improvement, country club, and all that. You are very, very supportive. But you're saying about the permits, they accelerated the timing of the permits, the tanks, for instance, outside. To do the bar inside, and the greenhouse on the outside. They were very supportive, and I think that what Max is doing in his parking lot, exactly by example, he's doing it. And I assure you that if he goes to the city and he needs something, whatever he needs, I'll come and fight for him.
No, a third of it is the city alley. I paid that for.
No, I know, but if you need something that, whatever you need, tax credit or permits, acceleration, whatever, I'll be the first one to come and speak in front of the city council. That's how I feel about it.
So I guess the motion would be, can the city administration come back to this board with a list of potential business incentives that the city may be able to utilize to help our efforts to revitalize the area, attract businesses, and help the businesses that are here grow? And I don't know what that is. It could be tax incentives, it could be tax abatements, it could be expediting the permit process, it could be potential grants that might be available through the federal government with all these new millions and billions of dollars that are coming out of Washington to all these states and counties and municipalities. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's a source that we could tap into that can help our efforts and the city's efforts. That would be the motion.
And I'll
Don't
second it.
ask me to repeat.
I'll second it.
He's gonna want to explain it to us.
Before you second, let me just clarify that I got a concise version of what you said. So, it's a motion to request the city investigate and report back to the Business and Economic Development Task Force on small business incentives. And they
Yeah,
can be-
whatever incentives gonna be out there, and examples would be that, tax abatement, grants for small businesses, grants for training employees,
Expediting permits.
expediting permits.
Yeah.
You know, whatever's out there.
We have a motion and we have a second,
That's correct.
correct? So we have a first and a second. Is there any more discussion?
No.
Okay, We'll go to a vote.
All in favor?
I'll do a roll call. I'll do a roll call, that way we can track it. It's easier to see for the motion. Board Member Fernandez,
Yes.
Board Member Camacho,
Yes.
Board Member Leonard,
Yes.
Board Member Milo,
Yes.
Board Member Correa,
Yes.
Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
and Chair Perea.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess that'll be also another recommendation.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next item, one thing I'm sitting here and listening to is a lot of frustration. It seems like a lot of work's being done or trying to get done and nothing gets done. That's unfortunate. Our purpose is not to do nothing, but there are things that we can do pretty much immediately. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money. I heard Mr. Mylan at the onset of the meeting saying that one of the things that they were doing, and I believe is so important, is that they're gonna put a moratorium on variances for parking. This should have been done much ago. It should have been done years ago. And what's happening is, as believe it or not, the city's gonna change whether we want it or not. Maybe not to the way we want it. If we continue to allow this development to come in, when you have an apartment building that comes in with shops and they get a variance for X number of parking spaces, what does that mean? It creates a burden on everybody else. And if you're a businessman and you can get away with it, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars because a parking garage now is in excess of 40-something thousand dollars a parking space. If you give a variance for 10 parking spaces, you just gave that businessman close to $500,000. And what happens? Everybody else is paying for it. They're inconvenienced for it. That needs to be done immediately, the moratorium. And if it means that instead of having 10 one-bedrooms, you can only have 8, that's the cost of doing business. And it shouldn't be at the mercy of everybody else. So the moratorium is something that needs to be looked at, but there's things that can be done immediately. You can have code enforcement, make sure that the people like Mr. Milam's and other shop owners, Siamo, and businesses clean up their facade. That's part of the code. You need to clean up. You don't need gum on the sidewalk. Those are things that can be done immediately and should be done immediately. Because nobody wants to go into a place which is dirty, it's littered. Those are things we have control over, and we should work on that. And then continue to work as a building. And it's very, very frustrating. We have an individual here today that spoke earlier, that he's part of the recreation board. There are things that small towns do throughout the community. They go ahead and sponsor festivals. They do little funny things, like you go up north and they have businesses decorate a scarecrow in front of their shop, and it creates interest. Mount Dora, they have the huge antique festival once a year. Those are things that bring in people into the community. Before you know it, those are things that are inexpensive and can be done immediately. And it builds on that and that momentum. You need to create excitement in this community about where we live and how we live. And then we need to fix it. And I hope that people aren't discouraged by what's going on, and that we take this and move forward to the next step and address those problems that are critical. So that's just my 2 cents worth of what we need to be doing. Focus on the big picture to overall, but there's so many little things that can be done now that really doesn't take a lot of money and effort. Working with the recreation department, you know, they used to have movie night in the circle. They stopped it because of conflict between church and state. Those are all things that are part of the community, and people start getting excited. But if there's no excitement, no matter what you do, this place is gonna die.
Francisco, that was worth a lot more than 2 cents. But,
Yeah, right.
but I would like to say just what you said on the parking is, and what really got me upset about that, it didn't even require a variance. The variance process was stripped, which the public input was stripped. That was my concern.
Absolutely.
And it didn't even cost them anything. I forget the name of what they call it, but whenever.
Mitigation.
Where's the mitigation?
So I didn't realize that even happened, and I've been here for many, many years until you brought it up.
I had to read it 3 times before I actually saw it in there. And I'm like, how does this get missed? People have a responsibility to bring that up. It's not my job.
So, back to 5D to parking.
Did you take a vote on that motion then?
Yes.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah. I could have. I think it's simple, all of that.
So is it this task force responsibility to recommend anything on parking, or is it being taken care of because we had brought it up earlier
So that's,
in other sessions?
it has come up at, council meetings, it's come up at the workshop meetings, they're definitely listening. But I have this back on the agenda, it's an agenda item because nothing's been voted on to move forward. You guys, Board Member Milo had a great presentation with a lot of detail, and Board Member Correa, I believe, brought the renderings with for chocolate. I don't think this board officially made any action. Like you guys didn't choose to move forward with anything. It was presented, but it wasn't as a board. Move forward.
Move forward. Okay, so
Through the chair, I would like to bring that particular subject up when we get to the business topic.
But
But I know you're talking about it because this is tied into my,
the public parking,
yes. That's it's tied in together.
so would you like to skip this item and come back to it?
Yeah, we can skip it and come back if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
that's fine.
That because it's
Actually,
tied-
I have a question, if you don't mind, on this item. I wanted to make a recommendation, no, this may sound a little crazy right now, since we're doing so much. But there is a possibility at some point to charge for parking. You know, there's a lot of investment that at some point is gonna go into the city, parking is gonna cost a lot. So why don't we put, over the table, the fact that at some point we could charge for parking? There could be a lot of exceptions to it, like residents don't pay, employees don't pay, business owners don't pay. And then we can have some kind of restriction as far as time goes. The first 1 hour is free, first 2 hours is free. But at some point, it will help raise some funds for the city as well. Just wanted to put that idea out there.
Should we discuss it now since we're already?
Sure, I mean, feel free.
But it was, I don't know.
Yeah, it's on this item on
Yeah, he's talking about the recommendation of public health, which is tied into this later, but we just proceed with Mr. Garcia's recommendation. I agree with you because yesterday I was in the Rock City. Yeah, the person, we were there an hour and a half, they charge, I think it's 2 hours free there after 6 p.m. And then they charge. So I know they don't like to charge, the city of Miami Springs, but Mr. Garcia is right.
I haven't been, I travel a lot within the Miami-Dade County, and most cities I have to pay for parking. So maybe, do we discuss it a little bit further?
Maybe
I have
to-
some suggestions
maybe add it
too.
as a new item for the next agenda.
So-
So
Public topic question.
So hold on. Before, so we're all on the same page. We're gonna skip and come back to item 5B, correct? Is that what we're doing?
And discuss it as new business, is that what we're doing?
You can, we can just go back.
Go back.
We're
Okay,
gonna
yes,
continue the
let's do
order
that.
and then go
Okay,
back.
let's continue and come back to parking.
Okay.
And talk about charging as well.
I mean, can I add something about the parking?
I think we're gonna
We're gonna go back.
come back,
Yeah.
so write it down, don't forget.
It's already.
Just so we have a. Okay, so item 5B is meeting schedule frequency.
Right.
That was discussed at the last meeting. I just wanted to bring up a couple of pieces of information. And I wanted also, again, get a decision from the board to see what we are gonna do. Because I think last time it was, a lot of ideas were floated, but I wanted to get some information. So you guys are set to meet every first Thursday of the month, right? So we also have other meetings that take place for other boards. We have 11 active boards that meet. 4 of them meet every single month, and a lot of other ones meet bi-monthly and some quarterly. So that fills up the month schedule pretty quickly. Just really quickly, just so if you guys choose whatever you guys do choose, if you want to meet more frequently, if you want to continue your meeting schedule, those are all possibilities. But I just wanted to let you guys know and keep in mind that we do have other meetings, so that already take up other days of the week throughout the month. So before you discuss this, I just whatever you do come to conclusion, I could provide you those times or whatever you as a consensus come to do for this.
So are we to vote to see if we're gonna be able to meet more, if we want, first of all, if we want to meet more often?
Correct. So we heard that at the last meeting, some wanted to do an extra day. But I wanted to, so it's official and we move forward the right procedure. For someone to make a motion to either continue meeting this frequency, which is once a month, add an extra day if that's the motion you want to make, or whatever whatever you want to do with it. You want to meet every 2 months. I don't even know if that's even, you guys are considering. I think you're maybe trying to meet.
I really believe that once a month is what I know.
You want to make that motion, Patrick?
I would love to, because if there is an emergency, we need to meet for some reason. The chair can always call, said, let's meet next week, let's do this, that. But for us, some of us who have things to do with travel and all that stuff for work, it's difficult to be here every couple of weeks, whatever. I'm just saying, but I will make the motion.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. And before you guys start your discussion, I just want to kind of echo that is, as a board, you have a set meeting date. You can always, let's say you have a project that you're gonna really look into coming up, maybe you guys, I don't know, are gonna discuss something specifically and want to meet more frequently, you can add an extra meeting that month as a special meeting out of your regular meetings.
That's exactly correct. That's what.
So that would, so because if you were to make a, which we already have a motion, we have a first and a second, we're gonna vote on that. But also just to give you more information. If you were to change your meeting schedule and have 2 meetings per month, now you're required to attend those meetings. And after 3 absences, you're removed from the board. So you become at risk at that. If you meet out of that special meeting, if you choose to move to a special meeting on a certain date, then it will help you.
Thank you, Juan. I didn't know that option.
Any further discussion on this motion? No. Continue meeting once a month.
With the provision, could I add something to that? Mr. Camacho,
Yes,
with the accept, if you can add one more thing to that motion, I know we have a first and a second, motion and a second. But what
Yeah,
Juan said,
we can't change it yet.
we can,
We can't change it yet, but maybe you can discuss what you have in mind, and this is discussion time, so you can bring it up.
okay, so the point I was trying to make was what Juan enlightened us to, I did not know, because I always feel that there's something that comes up that's pressing enough that we want to discuss in order to, because we've discussed many times, present opportunities to the council. And I got to just that we begin to business also, but there doesn't seem to be any appetite or invitation for this board to come in front of the council for some reason. So as long as we know that it is presented by Mr. Garcia, one, that we can meet if necessary in the middle of between 2 meetings, that's fine.
Okay, so should we vote?
Yeah, you have a first and a second, that, you're voting on this motion.
Okay.
So I'll do roll call. Board Member Fernandez,
Yes.
Board Member Camacho.
yes.
Board Member Leonard,
Yes.
Board Member Milo,
Yes.
Board Member Perea,
Yes.
Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
and Chair Perea.
Yes.
Thank you. 7-0, we'll move with the remaining the meeting frequency and still allowing you, if you choose to have a special meeting. to have that.
We need to make a motion for that, the second meeting.
No, that's parliamentary procedure. It's just something that like all meetings can do.
Okay.
You can have workshop meetings, which are basically meetings that you don't really have to vote. You just kind of it's like a brainstorming session.
Thank you.
Well, it's the type of meeting that we have.
So let's move on to new business. Funding new projects, city token.
Yes, this is something I brought up on the last meeting, because it's a necessity to have funds to do everything that we're proposing. And the city, in a way, is also a business. It has to get funds in, get funds out, balance, be attractive. So it's great that we're proposing all this, but we don't know what kind of funds the city has and what it would need to make it all a reality. So this is an option that we have. I don't actually have a presentation. I gave all the details before. There's some legal issues that can come into question with all of this, and I'm looking forward for the city attorney to give us a hand on that. But this could help raise funds for a lot of stuff that we have. This together with the idea of parking and many other ideas that we can come up with. But the reality is we need the funds. What the way the city is producing its money right now, it may not be enough for what we're trying to achieve. Okay, so probably the best thing that I could do is, I don't know if everybody has a copy of what I gave out last time for the city. Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Okay.
You can also send it to me, and I can send it to the board
Okay.
members again, so that.
I didn't make copies, so I'm sorry for that. I wanted to kind of open the floor since I don't have a copy of, to kind of a Q&A session, if that's okay. So whatever doubts you guys may have about this whole proposal, the city token, I'm more than happy to answer in non-technical terms.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I haven't seen it. I don't know what to ask.
Okay, but it was basically creating kind of a digital currency for the city. This could help raise those funds. The token, the coin, it has both names, but token, it's actually more precise, technical terms. It could help raise the funds. There could be some kind of charge within that system in a way that when people sell, it gets taxed in a way. Some funds go to a community fund, and the other goes to everybody who's actually holding the actual coins. There's a lot of things that can be done there. It could be used as a voting system, even for local elections. It's a lot more, but I wish I could have a paper that to explain all this stuff and give it to you guys. But in essence, that's what it would do. It would help us raise funds, just like kind of like bonds did in the past. You know, but this whole idea that it could have a charge within the system for people to when they sell, everybody gets a percentage of it, the city gets a percentage of it. So it's a continuous thing that keeps building up value for everybody that's holding on to it.
Mr. Garcia, is there a way that you could probably type something out that the chair agrees with what you're doing? In simple layman terms, how this works and give it to one so we can disseminate it to the board members. Because it is complex. I know it is. I have not got any interest. I know a little bit about investments, but this is an area that is very new to a lot of people. And if you ask everybody here, most probably everybody is going to say they have not dealt with their funds.
Yeah.
So it's important, since you're an expert at it, to try to put it in very simple language. What is it? How did it work? How does you mention a couple of things about taxation that you get a percentage? And I think last meeting you mentioned it's like a bond. You get, so if you can just outline those simple one line sentence, one sentence line item, maybe it will make it easier for us to understand. Then as the city council can understand, and most importantly, I humbly believe we have a CPA in the city. He's government certified, and his name is Mr. William Alonso, the city manager. I would humbly recommend the position of chair that allow Mr. Garcia to make this presentation to the city manager, because he is a finance person. He was elected as the city manager because I read a little bit about his history, because he was instrumental in actually balancing the budget and saving money for the city when he was, I believe, assistant chair and finance director. So he would be the guy to see.
But would we need to make a recommendation, so to have Mr. Garcia heard? Or, I mean, I don't know how.
No,
that-
our city manager attends these meetings pretty frequently. He's just, along with the mayor, they're in Tallahassee at the moment.
and he is usually-
Yeah, I assume that he'll be here at the next meeting. What we, as a board, you can do is, table this item for tonight and have, board member Garcia at the next meeting make a presentation where, possibly a motion.
But can I make a recommendation? Rather than wait another 30 days for the next meeting, can he put this in?
Sure, if he's willing to, he can send it to me, and I'll send it to you as soon as we get it.
Can he okay? Can he go to the city manager? So he can.
Yeah, nothing prevents him. Like, he's not, staff can always be contacted in the sense that we're not voting members. We don't make any, just, we can talk about agenda items.
Because I think he is going to be the one to look into this very deeply, because he's a CPA, he understands it. So I just made that number suggestion for Mr. Garcia, who's a very busy man, I'm sure, but the time.
Before we do that, I strongly should suggest that the city attorney takes a look at this and they decide if we can move forward or not. It just takes time, you know, to break this and go more in that, so if there's something that's not feasible, why even present it, you know, I'll go in that direction.
Are there any cities that are doing
The
something?
city of
like that?
Miami has it, they've done a terrific job.
That's what I was gonna say, through the chair, it's a city of mine, and they have water, got destroyed.
Yeah.
I think I read, they raised
Miami.
$5.2 million.
It's actually a lot more of that.
Okay, but because I think I saw publication, 5.2. Within a very short period of time. According to him, just talking about the same subject of money, it is come to my understanding that, city manager Alonso said that this proposal is being manipulated, myself, he's creating genius, raise, is gonna cost us $2 million. So if this declines, there's a cost right there. That's just the beginning. And this was that we brought up over and over and over again in every single report, the past 35 years. So,
Madam Chair,
yeah,
I just had a quick question. Why reinvent the wheel? If the city of Miami is doing it, why can't the city attorney discuss with the Miami city attorney and get whatever ordinance resolution
Yeah.
that they already reviewed, found that it was legal, and they implemented it? And that way, if it makes sense, it'll be a much quicker.
I think at some point, the Security Exchange Commission gets involved and things like that. That's why I want to get that out of the way.
Just a
a
question.
brilliant idea.
Just a question, is the city of Miami mining their own cryptocurrency, or they're basically allowing you to pay taxes and your water bill with cryptocurrency, and the profit they're arriving from is the actual cryptocurrency going up and down? So if I pay my water bill, which is $100 this month, to the city of Miami in cryptocurrency, I give $100 worth of cryptocurrency to the city. 2 months from now, that same $100 may be worth 107, but they didn't mine a cryptocurrency for the city. I think that's a little bit different than what you're proposing. You're proposing the creation of a cryptocurrency to be exchanged. That's my understanding. Maybe I misunderstood what you're.
It's a combination that they're allowing, either allowing to mine, but it's a very technical term. The good thing about this is that the city can convert into a stable currency, a stable coin.
So the currency, you're creating a
If
currency.
I pay you with the Miami Springs token at that point in time, you can convert into a coin that is equal to the dollar.
So it's a little bit different, exactly the same, but different. Okay,
So as a board, are you wishing to table this to the next meeting to
I
have?
would say we need permission or approval from the city attorney to move forward. I would say it's more of a legal issue than anything.
So we have to make a recommendation that it be presented to the city attorney, or it can be done without.
No, it can be done without. That's something that the city clerk's office can help you at least get the question.
So we're gonna table this for the next meeting.
So I think it's sensible. So we can go back to 5D.
Under new business.
Old business.
That's the point.
Yeah, but I'm substituting that.
Oh, okay.
Opportunity. Sarah, can I ask you to say I let everybody. Thank you, Sarah. want to have any discussion, they'd like to make on this, and if your permission, I understand that if the city, that my wife who wants to go to meeting to go in December, have it to everybody, and I'd like to go in.
Is this the same as the last?
Yeah.
Oh, we have it scanned, we have it scanned.
Oh, you stand
Thank
it?
you.
Thanks. I wasn't sure.
No, no, I keep
Your
everything.
mind
else.
was just, back then.
No.
Captain, is that the exhibit you referred to?
Yes, that's the, yes, sir.
So I have a question. Is the task force responsibility, can we put through a resolution or?
No.
No,
No.
we're going to put together a report.
You're
That's
gonna-
our,
Well,
Recommendation.
you can make recommendations, but all your recommendations that are made tonight, whenever this board makes, as soon as they make it, they go to the next council meeting for review. And then council will either uphold or look into or table whatever they decide with your recommendation was made at this meeting.
so we can make a recommendation if there is a motion that is brought up and we agree on it, we can make a recommendation for the city council to take a look at this and see if they can implement it. Or do we have to wait until the very end and it has to be part of our report?
Well, you can make the recommendation now, whether council takes it into action immediately or at the end of your report, it's up to council. That's their decision.
So is that what we want to do? We want to,
I don't want to do that, Madam Chair, because, it was my understanding, and I have been at two council meetings, the council meeting. And, two of the meetings, it was my understanding that I could speak as the chairman, obviously, I'm a board member. I was told that I could speak and make this presentation to the city council. But I don't know what happened subsequently, when I was at the meeting. Twice, Councilman Victor Vasquez tried to push the parking issue, give me an opportunity to speak because I was in the audience. And he was overruled and said that the task force was too busy. And then we have to wait till the end of the term. But we have had many discussions here for the past 4 months that people like myself who have the time could represent the task force and make a presentation. But really it's sad is I'm sitting right there and every other business and every other task force and more of all that are existent in the city of Miami was actually invited to come and speak. And I tried to raise my hand to say, what about us? But we were kind of told we can't speak. We were unable to present anything before September. I don't know where it's coming from. So I'm thinking to myself, I feel terrible. I had this great desire to want to see something happen. And if we gave you the thing open, what this whole idea is, this is 72 parking slots, 75, excuse me. The larger one that many have with suggestions from my wife and myself, because we want this to be measured with tape measures. His grandchildren are helping. I mean, these are the dedicated people, not just myself, but my family, but his family, his grandchildren.
so if I understand correctly, we can make a motion to have this presented to
The council,
the city council.
Correct.
but then we can't present ourselves. Why are
No,
we there?
I just to jump in, I'm not sure what meeting that was, or I'm not sure.
Two council meetings,
Okay, but
and he was right there.
I'm sure,
And
and
we're not allowed to speak.
but that's
The task force.
that's due to it wouldn't be it would have to be an agenda item that you're speaking on or in public comment, and maybe that's what it was happening. You also, if you're speaking on this item of parking, the board hasn't made a recommendation officially on parking. So you're essentially presenting something that the board hasn't, yeah, which is fine. That I'm not saying that didn't happen, but he's coming to the board as a representative.
Of the board.
We would have to come as a private citizen.
But I don't think, just to clarify maybe the process of why maybe, I wasn't there, I wasn't.
No, I know,
Understand.
but my point is, every other board member, and Bob knows it, was invited to speak, and specifically the business and economic task force said that we are too busy, that we don't have time to make a presentation at any council meeting.
But
I think that is not fair to us.
I'm not sure that how that.
Yeah, you probably explain it.
I
You said.
I really, I didn't want to get involved with this, because it's your deal. But I have to tell you that the initial reasoning was brought forward by Mayor Mitchell relative to all of the different boards, and that the fact over the years we haven't approved boards. There's an item on every council meeting on the agenda for boards and recommendations for boards, and we've never exercised that. And she was the one that came up with that idea, so we exercised it. We started doing it. It was brought up about this particular board, and the consensus seemed to be that you guys have a charge of, like a sunset, where a report will come out at the end. So to have to hear this stuff going forward, it's really not consequential, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
That's what the mayor was saying, and I think that, again, with the assistant clerk just mentioned, it wasn't an agenda item. So for you to speak as a representative of this board, you know, would have been inappropriate in both cases,
Yeah, but Councilman Vasquez tried to mention that.
I can't speak to
I mean,
what my
you brought
colleague
it up.
said. All I can tell you is what I know to be a fact.
But then why are we not allowed to speak? Because of the fact that this report is coming out at the end.
It was discussed whether or not to include this particular board in terms of coming for recommendations or anything. It was decided, actually the mayor made specifically the statement for the minutes, that this board is not an ongoing entity. It has a sunset provision to it. So you have a charge, well, to bring stuff to us that makes sense. And I've heard a ton of stuff that makes a whole lot of sense. And I could probably be here for an hour and tell you what I think. But I'm not going to do that to you.
But we all have agreed, you've heard about, you thank you for coming to our meeting.
And I read all your stuff, and I'm hopeful my colleagues do as well. So this is not going on deaf ears.
Well, and
Trust me.
Captain, if I can,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bob.
everything what you presented on this several months ago with Manny Perez, Bishop, the architect and everything, and the amount of work that went into this was fantastic. And I agree, it's something that's been around for 20 years, and here we are again. And I remember very early at this board that we were encouraged to bring things to the council as this board moved forward. And I'm not gonna sit here if we're gonna just do something at the end, because I just feel like I'm wasting my time. And I looked at what you presented here, and this is very well done. I commend you on this. And I don't see why this can't be, all it's simply saying at the bottom, it says this resolution will be presented to the city council for immediate consideration and action. It doesn't obligate the city to anything. It's just, he's just.
No, I understand that. I'm sorry.
I was gonna, I mean, can we just substitute the word resolution for recommendation?
Yes, that's good.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So can we have a motion to present what you've got?
That's
Move it on to city council rather than wait till to the end for the report?
That would ultimately be up to council's decision of how they want to see your recommendations, but as a board secretary, what I do after every time you guys make a recommendation is I put it into a memo. Today, there's been a couple of recommendations, so there'll be a couple, along with the minutes, that is presented, that is then given to the city clerk for her to discuss with council when that goes on the agenda. But that's up to council when they have the opportunity to see it or when they feel that this board.
And we can move it forward.
Sure,
If we all agree.
on our end, what you guys can do is make the recommendation. That I will reflect our recommendation in the minutes, in the memo, and give it to city council for their decision.
Substitute the word.
But I understand what you're saying, and I understand the confusion of not being able to speak, but what I think Councilman Bass was saying, and kind of how probably the challenge was, is that those other boards were there as agenda items prior. There are reports that were requested from those chairs. This board hasn't made a recommendation on parking. There's been, board member Milo made a great presentation. You made also yourself a great presentation, but I don't think officially as consensus, you guys have come to a decision on what's going to be parking. I think that's why it wasn't able to be heard of that.
I don't think that's our job.
But I think,
I think that's the city's job, and what the captain has done here is, you know, is a part of something that should be done. It's something that's been around for 20 years, and something I supported 20 years ago and I support today. And I think this is outstanding. I think that's outstanding, and I'd like for it to be before the council. They can make a decision.
yeah, absolutely.
And, on what they want to do. But, I commend him for all the work that he's done.
Thank you, board member. And that's exactly what I was saying. But my point is that you guys hadn't made a recommendation. So if you'd like to do that tonight, that's absolutely appropriate.
Then, thank you for your input, Charlie.
This says here, the foregoing recommendation was offered by board member Captain. I guess we're waiting for you to make your motion to recommend.
Okay, this, I will make a motion to recommend this instead of as a resolution, it's entirely as a recommendation. Please substitute the word recommendation for resolution, Mr. Watt. And then you see the word resolution and change it to recommendation.
Could you read from the top, you have the title?
Yes.
Could you read the title into the record and make that as the
I
motion?
sure will. A recommendation of the Business and Economic Development Task Force of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, approving the recommendation that the city council will finally take steps to make improvements to the first two blocks of Westwood Drive from the Circle to Park Street, providing for additional public on-street parking and sidewalk widening.
Second.
Yeah, we have a first and a second. Now we can discuss.
Any further discussion?
Captain, I'd like to just thank you for all the work you put in on this. I know it was a lot of work. Thank you.
Well, and we told that to you for all the hard work you did. We 3 different presentations by the City of Miami Springs, Facebook page by Mr. Nestor Suarez. He was the city's Gazette, and Mr. Tom Curtis never does that, but he said, I prefer for one time to read the Facebook of the Miami Springs.com. All what Mr. McFarland did. That was, he said we have 100 hours. I think Mr. Marlon said at least 500 hours on that project. That was a lot of work.
I don't think so. Can I ask this though, as a part of this discussion? Because what I think this is really outstanding, and I would hope that with this recommendation, as it's written here, with just that word changed from resolution to recommendation, that this entire recommendation would be presented and on the agenda for the council's next meeting. Because I just don't want it to get washed under the carpet. I'd like to have it on the agenda.
I will include it in the same process that I present the minutes and the memo. So it's up to council to put it on the agenda, but on our end, we'll do that.
Does the public or the task force not have, the ability to put something on the agenda, or?
Council makes their decisions on what they discuss.
Okay, yeah.
It can be requested, and that's what's going to be reflected. All your comments are going to be reflected in the minutes. Absolutely. You're going through the right channels of getting it there.
To the chair, Madam Chair. One, can one of us talk to elected officials to request them to put it on the agenda for the council?
Absolutely. You can talk to whoever appointed you. Speak to them. I encourage that. If a board member, you are all here because a council member appointed you. Speak to your council representatives about what's going on here. They can. These recommendations are going to be made to them, right?
I know, I was told that it's not a violation of the Sunset Protocol for it.
No, because you're both, they appointed you.
Correct.
It's a violation of the Sunshine Law to talk to other board members about agenda topics that you'll be voting on.
Correct.
So you can speak to staff, you can speak to other board members of other boards. You can speak to anybody, as long as it's not somebody on this board and you're not gathering either.
And I want to thank you, Ron, and Myra, because you gave Myra the entire sunset provision. And I discovered something which I didn't know. I could actually socialize with anybody in Japan and go for drinks and beer and stuff, as long as you don't talk about anything.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with my walking down the street with any of these members or going to these people's restaurants and grocery store or buying real estate from Mr. Charlie over there.
You're absolutely right. I will warn you, it's a perception-based loss. If somebody goes to see like a group of you and you guys.
Like
maybe have
all of us
dinner,
go to dinner together.
and you're talking about something completely different, if somebody reports that, then they, that's investigated, that's, who knows who you are. But just as a.
But it's in the law, you sent it to me, it says you can.
Yeah, you absolutely can, but I caution.
Okay, thanks.
So should we take a vote?
Yes.
Yes, we have
Is
a
there
first and
further
second. We-
discussion?
we need to vote. Okay, Board Member Fernandez,
Yes.
Board Member Camacho, Board Member Leonard,
Yes.
Board Member Milo,
I'm gonna vote 3 times. Yes, yes, yes.
Board Member Perea,
5 times.
Board Member, I need a yes.
Oh, yes.
Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
and Chair Curio.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think we're gonna come back to parking.
No, that was.
Oh, wait, no, but how about, or do we need it for
That is stable.
the charging, for parking, that's stable?
I think that was a new agenda item.
Okay, for next
Charging,
meeting?
I'm sorry, no, we don't have anything else on the agenda. We've gone through all the items. The only thing that's left is, the next meeting will be, March 3rd. It's another Thursday at 6 p.m.
There was gonna be a discussion about charging for parking. I think that's what-
I think we're gonna come back to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can add that to the next agenda.
Okay, let's do that.
So for next agenda, preparation for next agenda, I do have the business survey coming back.
Should I add something to the next?
Absolutely.
Awesome. 3 things that I saw here. City token thing is a great thing. And then, also the improvement of 36th Street, we're talking about, earlier, like the destination, especially that a lot of tourists are coming from all over the world, that's the first thing they see, 36th Street. I just wanted, if we can get information about that, tax situation. Okay, because I don't know what it's saying, it's going to the county or it's going, it would be great if you can get some idea.
Yeah, I can speak to, I know that the mayor is always, I mean, she's still on, but we can, since it's not on the agenda item, we won't discuss it today. On the next agenda, we
Yes,
can
yes,
definitely have it,
yes.
maybe ask for, an update.
Exactly.
Where it's at. Yeah, absolutely. It's appropriate. So if I heard you correctly, I have, we're bringing back the business survey because that was tabled. We're bringing back the city token for a presentation. We're bringing,
Actually, a green light from.
oh, correct, right. So, my apologies. I'll look into that item before, add it to the agenda. If there's a green light, would you like to bring it up?
Absolutely, yes.
We're also looking into improvements on 36th Street. Right. And, payment for parking.
And other suggestions for parking, I think we talked about, but we'll call it.
Or,
I think that could be an agenda item too, because we're very focused on Western Drive, but how about there's so many other options that we can come up with about certain areas where we can add extra parking.
Sure.
That could be another.
so then what I can, if it's okay with you, and I'm listening to you, right? Under new business, we'll have, funding new projects and then have 2 items of the city token and then, public parking. We'll do that. Okay. All right, that's it. Other than that, you guys have made recommendations on everything else.
And before you adjourn, Madam Chair, okay.
Councilman,
Well, I would ask the board if they have any other things before I speak.
is there anything else that we would like to discuss?
Just I want to bring something to the board's attention. That I feel she needs recognition. One, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna mention
Yeah,
that, we have Myro has, we have hired Sandra to replace Myro in our office. Sandra comes to, our office from, building department. She has about going on 4 years experience with our city, so you guys are gonna be in really, really good hands.
Thank you.
With Sandra.
Madam Chair, if I may, it's Mayor Mitchell again. I'm sorry, I've been catching the meeting on and off because I've been in the middle of several other things, but I just wanted to mention 2 things that we have happening that relate to this whole issue of accessibility around the business area, the Westward Drive and Circle business area, is I've reached out to the Public Works Director for the county. The county Circle Road is a county road, and asked them to come reevaluate now that we have the large residential and commercial building going up at One Curtis Parkway, that I think pedestrian accessibility to and from and around the circles, particularly on the east side of the circle, that I would like them to look at it again and see what improvements need to be made to make sure that, that we're properly addressing that. And then the other thing is that the council is having a workshop. I think it's later this month, and I don't have the dates in front of me, to discuss the gateway overlay ordinance and try to address any gaps that are in it. There are several issues in that ordinance that were not perhaps properly addressed or could be improved upon. And so now that this project is nearing completion, we're going to have a workshop to discuss that. And Juan can give you the date on that. I'm not sure what that is, but that's just a council workshop. Okay. And thank you again so much. All of us on the council are greatly appreciative of your being there. Again, I cannot speak for, what has happened in the past. I wasn't on the council in the past. The council asked for this task force to be there because we recognize that improvements need to be made into attracting new businesses to Miami Springs and assisting our existing businesses to thrive. They shouldn't just get by. They should be thriving. And our Miami Springs community, as far as I'm concerned, and I've said this before at your meeting, is a gem. Our location, our quality of life, our accessibility, how we differ from every other community in Miami-Dade County is just really unique. So the reason that we asked for this task force, to ask for all of you to be there, is we'd like to have your input. So again, we greatly appreciate your time there. We can go back 20, 30, 40 years as to why things weren't done. I don't know. I wasn't on the council. So all I can do is, and all of us on the council now, is move forward. But it would be irresponsible for us to take reports that were done long before, when we don't know what was involved, and just say, oh, let's just move forward, dust it off the shelf, and say, you know what, without getting input from the community, from this task force as to recommendations. And again, I want to stress the reason that we made this task force 1 year is that we don't want this to be an ongoing process where, you're meeting there. It's a 1 year time period for you to work. And I know so far your concentration has been on the Westward Drive area, but I want to remind you again that our business areas are all along Northwest 36th Street and the Abraham Track. And all of those are business areas that we would like to improve upon, attract new businesses there, support the existing businesses. So I hope you'll expand. I'm going to ask again that you consider expanding your scope to that. We get you with the parking. Your task force is not how to make parking. Your recommendation to us is, that parking needs to be substantially improved, that we've got several issues. And of course, you can recommend some of the ways that we could improve parking, but your scope is pretty big. So again, thank you so much. I hear frustration in some of your comments, and believe me, we want to do something. We want to move forward. We take your time, extremely, extremely valuable time that you're spending on this task force, and your recommendations, they have to be approved by the task force. Just someone discussing something at a meeting does not make it a recommendation. It has to be a vote that it's something that you're formally recommending to us. At city council meetings, we discuss a lot of issues, but that doesn't mean that it's something we move forward on unless we make a vote and decide to. So there again, if you have formal recommendations for us, that you have voted on it and your task force members are agreeing to forward to the city council, we very much appreciate it and will certainly review them and take them into the highest regard. All right. Thank you again so much. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Took the wind out of my sails. Hey, look, a lot of good stuff board members and Madam Chair have been discussed here tonight, as I mentioned earlier. Does anybody remember back in the years ago, revitalization in Miami Springs?
Yes.
Big process. Spent a lot of money. You spoke to it before, to the tune of about $242,000, if I'm not mistaken. 3 studies. Dover Cole, the Lambert study, and the Carrillo study.
Yes, sir.
And what you have in front of you right there is verbatim out of one of those studies.
Yes.
So this has, in fact, been addressed to the level of almost getting funded until we got turned off to the fund. So I want you to all know that we have clearly paid attention to the problems, and a lot of what you have recommended there, they help. You have our attention, trust me.
Thank you, Bob.
I appreciate, again, other members have mentioned, and I'll say it myself now, the vast amount of work that you've done for this. I appreciate it personally. The girl Christy was up there before. You got Mr. Garcia, Christy was on Zoom, and even you to an extent earlier, Francisco. Reminded me of millennials. And you know what? What that girl said early on in this meeting tonight is spot on. We really have to come to that metamorphosis in this town in terms of moving it forward. It's arguably the fabric of what you guys are about and what your charge is, to figure out what that fabric is, how to address it, and how to attack it. Look, you can fund anything, right? But to fund it properly and to fund it with due diligence and to address the issues as they should be addressed is really the way forward. That's what you guys are here for, to give us that, because you're all business owners, icons of the community, so to speak. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. Max, I didn't mean before to be that definitive or that abrupt about the sunset of this particular board, but that's how it was set up, and I think the Mayor just reiterated that a moment ago. But that doesn't say necessarily that going forward, such as what Nihal brought up tonight and gave us all copies of, why that can't come to the council and we can move it up on the agenda. There's no question about that. There's got to be a process to it. It can't just be, all over the place. That Bitcoin thing that we brought up earlier, cyber money or whatever, that's something for William to look at. I think he's probably somewhat knowledgeable of that. I did not know that the city of Miami was doing it, but there's got to be some semblance there, or some rationale behind it for them to do that. City that size. So that's something for sure to look at, of course. Thank you. And I just want to make a public statement here, since board member Milam is here. I'm the adjutant of the American Legion here at Miami Springs, post 32, and we developed the initiative for the War Memorial to be rebuilt, and we engaged Manny Vichette Perez, and he pro bono delivered us the rendering, and also the plot plan, floor plan for it. Again, he was involved in much of the Dover Cole study, et cetera, for the last 25 years in the city. That's my point. The Milam family graciously offered us to be able to allow for donations at their store for the last period, for a long period of time, actually. And I'd just like to publicly thank him for that. Because what it did was it raised an awful lot of money toward our hope to be able to put that thing back to the way it should be.
And the thanks didn't go to me or the Milam family, it goes to the citizens of Miami Springs, because they're the ones who are with the very generous hearts, to recognize those that have served for this country.
That's for sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
So the meeting is adjourned.
Oh, I was going to ask you one more thing before to adjourn the meeting because I want to thank Mrs. Sandra Duarte. I know why gave a terrific explanation, but I, as a resident, I wasn't on any board. My first board actually, except 25 years ago, he and I were on a golf club for economic task force and the golf course every time we had 8 chips and nothing like that. But Sandra, I have been exposed to the building and zoning, and she's very meticulous. Literally to replace Myra is not an easy job. We all know what a great person she was in managing the one task force. But I think if anybody they could have chosen to apply for this job, it's Sandra, because I have personal experience on permits and different things that I had to go to building and zoning. Mr. Ulysses Fernandez, the director, said was his hand. And she would send me all the documentation and everything in a very streamlined form. So I know that Juan knows this and that she will take an excellent.
Thank you, Nihal. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sandra.
Thank you.
So without any further discussion, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Sandra. You did a great job.
Bye. Good seeing you again. Good to see you. My pleasure.